And welcome to another very special episode of The Breakdown, X's and O's, and we're not talking hugs and kisses, ladies and gentlemen, because today, wait, where's Nate? Where is Nate? Tonight, Nate, the 5-year NFL veteran, the man, the myth, the legend, I like to call Nate Nessie, is out today. I will explain why he's out later, but I want to introduce a very special guest who is no stranger to today's show. Let me introduce the man who is responsible for what is on your screen. He's the guy that made this all possible, that brought me in when I was just a little wee tadpole. Let me introduce Mr. MJ Hurley. MJ.
Hi, guys.
Wait.
Hello?
What's up, MJ? I had to find a ticker.
Not much.
I forgot it was at the bottom.
I have my own ticker and everything. Thank you for having me, Connor. It's an honor to fill the very large shoes of a 5-year NFL veteran. It's not something that I take lightly. So I sped my way home from work today. It was our grand reopening day. We remodeled our dining room. It was our grand reopening. We handed out over 500 free chicken sandwiches today. So shout out to that kitchen. They pumped out some chicken today. And now I'm ready to talk some ball. What's up, Connor?
I would have eaten a lot of those chicken sandwiches, just to be frank. But I want to point out
people who came back and faked their way into a second.
Oh,
I know that.
For sure they have to. But I want to point out: do I sound a little better? Do I sound a little better?
You do.
Like it doesn't sound radio shacky.
You sound like you're here with me.
Do I sound like I'm there with you? That's what I want.
Like you're right here.
That's what I want it to feel like. Now I don't know if she's here. But if Michelle Davis is in the comments, that's the woman who bought me this microphone. We ended up finding it at a very particular store that we enjoy looking at in Mississippi at home. So we got it. And I was like, well, it's not a necessity, but I really would like one for the show because I'm tired of sounding like I had a mic from 10 years ago that I bought from Radio Shack, as y'all like to say. Uh-huh. So I was ready to get something as an upgrade. But Nate's not here today. He's actually on his journey to become an NFL ref. He's reffing a JV football game right now.
Oh, there we go.
He's going. I'm so happy for him. He texted me that. I said, you know what? Nate. I'm very happy because when you become an NFL referee, I'm going to your first game. I will be there.
I will heckle him.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to it because if he's going to be on that corner of the sideline just staring at those refs to just stare and see if a touchdown or like people's feet have been in, that's fine. He can do that. He can stand in the corner the whole way. But you know where I'm going to be? Right behind him in the stands, watching him watch people's feet. I will do that.
What are you looking at, Blue? Yeah.
I will do that. But Nate's not here today, so I had to bring in the next best guy. MJ is actually the first dude texted. I texted Bruce too, but he likes to do stuff on Tuesdays. So I was going to let him go. He's a busy guy. And then I texted Jackson after I texted y'all at the same time, but you were first. And then I texted Jackson because we had a very good show the other day, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I'm back in Starkville. The change of scenery is here. I'm not home anymore. You do not see those gray, blue colored walls. It is this, I don't even know what to call it. It's probably worse, honestly. It's probably a worse scenery for you guys to watch. But the audio is there. The audio is finally there. The background might not be it, but I'm doing what I can while I'm in the college dorm. So it's about 7:06. I wouldn't mind getting into our first segment of the show, which won't be Nate's necessary notes this time. Let me turn it down. Obviously. Let me turn it down. I'm going to introduce the first segment of the show. It's called The Devastating News. Okay. Because when Nate has puns for his segments, when he's not here, I'm going to get a little bit of play on words with my segments. And this first segment, last week I wanted to like get on the same page as I want to recap preseason every week that it ends, because we are on the day that preseason ends. And especially when football comes around, Nate and I have the perfect day to where the end of the NFL week will happen. Monday Night Football, that's the end of the week. It starts on Thursday. So Nate and I have that perfect cutoff where we can just go ahead, review the week. So that's what I want to do right now. And we had a couple games stand out to us, but I want to point out that Gardner Minshew became the Raiders starting quarterback after their preseason game, which is big. I like Minshew mania. I'm a big Mississippi guy. You know, right down the road from us. So I say us like you're still in Mississippi, but he was there. He was there. And if you want to catch up, the ticker down below has all the scores of every preseason week 2 game. You can go. It's all in order of how it was played. The first games are on Thursday. The last 2 were on Sunday. So if you want to catch up, it's right there. But there's a game in particular, 2 games in particular I want to talk about. And I want to start off with the very special one that's near and dear to your heart. MJ, you are a Packers fan. Like, I would say that you're pretty much a diehard Packers fan.
Oh, yeah.
So when the Packers
right here
went to Denver, Colorado, they ended up losing 27-2. And I want to pull out some stats for you. Tell me what you think about it. Give me like an overview of the game. I know you probably watched it unless you were working, but
unfortunately I did. It was on a Sunday, so I was free.
Okay, well, you saw it then. Well, Bo Nix went 8 for 9, had 80 yards passing and a touchdown, and then had 3 carries on the ground for 12 yards. He looked like the real deal. Obviously, Green Bay, you said, had like 31 of their 53 not starting.
They rested 31 players who were on their 53-man roster last year or were drafted this season.
But Green Bay looked pretty bad. Like, it didn't look like the team we saw go on the road and beat Dallas last year in the first week of the NFL playoffs. So give me your thoughts on that game. I'm interested as a Packers fan. How do you feel about that depth? Does the depth scare you for how bad that performance was? Let me know. Just let me know how you think about Bo Nix. Go ahead. Just tell me everything. I'll sit back.
So I'll start with Bo because he that's somebody we watched at the Senior Bowl. And I'll be honest, I was not impressed with Bo Nix at the Senior Bowl. Honestly, I think he had the worst week of any of the quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl. And I think that's kind of what we all agreed with by the time we left Mobile. And so, with that, then he gets drafted, 12th by the Broncos, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And it was just a weird selection to me. Jack, baby girl, we'll get there. I promise. Okay, we will get there.
He's going. He's getting the ball rolling.
Yes. So, with that in mind, I liked the pick because I like Sean Payton with that smaller quarterback. He's got 3 of them. He's got Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Jared Stidham, who are all yearning for a little bit of height. So, when I saw Bo go to Denver, I was like, that's the perfect place. And he has... I wouldn't say he has impressed me. I would say he has exceeded my very low expectations. So it's not that I'm impressed. Again, like Jack said, the Packers barely even played their backups in a lot of positions. If you look through, I mean, as a Packers fan, looking through the box score, I get a couple people deep on any category, and I'm like, those are names I haven't heard in a minute. Those are names I have
or
not
at all,
heard
maybe
in a while, or
at
at
all.
I mean, we've got Nate McRae getting carries for the Packers. I don't know who that is. I really don't. We've got Ellis Merriweather, who's got 2 receptions. Couldn't tell you. Got nothing. So do I like watching that game? No. Does it concern me? No, it does not. The Packers are a very good football team. They exceeded expectations last year. They're returning basically the same core across the board with some upgrades that I really like from this draft class. So obviously you never want to see that, but Matt LaFleur made it very clear after the game, like, hey, this was really a game where we're trying to figure out who is important to play next week, who we need to see play more next week to figure out that bottom end of the 53. Again, they rested 31 guys who pretty much, if you were inactive in that game, you're pretty much guaranteed a spot on the 53. So I would honestly look more into that. There were a couple guys that were inactive that I was like, I would have liked to see a little bit more running time, like AJ Dillon, who I think with the addition of Marshawn Lloyd from USC, I think AJ Dillon is somebody who I would love to see kind of fade out of that backfield in Green Bay. I would have loved to see him actually get some more game action. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's not fun to lose 27-2.
No, it is.
But I'm not freaking out. It's nowhere near code red.
I get it. And I want to point something out that you didn't make clear that I want to kind of make clear. Week 3 is it when it comes to preseason. That's it. You get 3 weeks now to decide who you want to make those final 5, 6, 7 slots of your 53-man roster. However many you have saved up from the starters you have announced in the coming season. So it becomes a little bit more difficult because you don't have as much time to kind of look at these players, because 4 games, a player might develop into someone you might not like at all to someone that might become a second string in a linebacker or whatever it may be.
Right.
But because they added that extra game at the end of the season, they had to take one away because healthy, like all this health protocol stuff. They got to keep the players healthy, which is what I cannot stand. When I look at that kickoff, I want to fast forward through a kickoff. I don't even want you to show me a kickoff on the screen because that's how mad it makes me. I don't want to see people waiting to just for something to happen.
I kind of like it
to run into each other like we saw in freaking Egyptian times with chariots and javelins where people could stab each other in the heart. I want it to be football. I don't want to see people play have time to do tea and stuff on the football field before the ball gets to them. I want to, because basically now every time what I've noticed is the person is always either at the 25-yard line or above it. I've seen one time in the entire games I've watched in preseason where the person did not return it past the 25.
Isn't that more fun though?
No, it's not more fun. I want to see people have 99-yard runs like Derrick Henry against the Jaguars. I want to see that, but we're not going to be able to see that because the kickoff rules are bong dong, diggly yong dong.
You know that run was because somebody got pinned because of a punt, right?
Yeah, that's more than likely what it is. But if somebody muffs a kick, or if you muff a kick, you're still going to be able to get back to the 20. It's not like, because those dudes are sitting there and sitting there.
They've got no momentum.
Right. And it's like by the time they get to their top speed, the dude's already going to be at the 15-yard line before they can reach.
I think what I like about it, I don't disagree with what you're saying. But what I like is it'll create some creativity on the kickoffs. And it's not there yet, obviously, because the teams haven't figured it out. But once you get to a point where I'd love to see a team put their starting offensive line out there. What's stopping me? Put my starting offensive line. Let's just say I'm the Packers. Put my starting offensive line out there. Put like Christian Watson and Jaden Reed deep. Let's get freaky with it. Like, What's stopping you? You could have some fun with it. And that's also very true. I think a lot of teams already have their plans. But again, okay, so what I really like, Connor, is you have another 5-6 plays throughout the game where the 52nd guy on the roster can actually make a difference now. Whereas before, I understand you say you fast forward through kickoffs now, people used to get up and go to the bathroom during kickoffs. People used to not even pay attention at all because it was 1 in a million that you got a kickoff return for a touchdown. I understand that there were big hits, and for the football nerds, it was cool. But for like the general viewing audience that may not be football nerds like you and me, it was not exciting. So I think that's really what it is. It's like, hey, I can create some intrigue on this play. This is a play that used to be dead, and we used to sandwich it with commercials. And now people are actually going to stick around and watch it, and we might even have to have the broadcasters pay attention.
Then you make a good point. If I had my offensive line out there, those dudes are already used to just standing still and have somebody bull rush them.
Yeah.
And those dudes are 250, 300 pounds that are bull rushing at them. What makes a 180-pound dude running at full speed?
Exactly.
It's going to feel like a 300-pound dude bull rushing.
Just imagine Trent Williams pulling on a kickoff. Just imagine a pulling Trent Williams running at the 6th-string corner for the Jaguars on a kickoff return. You're telling me that's not fun?
No,
that guy is getting sent into the next dimension, Connor.
And the good thing about it is there is no illegal man downfield penalty to penalize him for going too far down the field to block. He can just keep going.
Running
pancake after pancake, keep going.
See, doesn't that sound fun?
No, it does sound fun, but until I see it, I will change.
Oh yeah,
my
I mean nobody's gonna
on
do it.
I have to see it first.
Nobody's gonna put. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Jack has any ideas of what guys will actually do, but like, I would love to see a team put their starting offensive line out there, or even their full backup offensive line. I just want to see. I want to see a big boy run, Connor.
I mean, a team that I would not like to put their offensive line on the field, it just so happens to be my New Orleans Saints, because their offensive line is atrocious right now, and it always has been, which is a perfect segue into the next game I want to talk about for this preseason before we get into some college football that is oh so dear to my heart. Now, the Saints went to Santa Clara and played the 49ers. And it was interesting because I got to look at the offensive line who was basically starting, and they played above my expectations to a 49ers defense that was pretty much the starters besides Fred Warner. They played decent. Tallis Fuaga did not play. I don't know why. I don't know the deal with that. Maybe they just wanted to sit him. Maybe he's the lock-in starter. He didn't play. But the guy that did play is a guy named Derek Carr, who made me almost throw up week 1 when he played. He threw a screen pass, and it might as well went to the water boy on the sideline because it was awful. It made me want to throw up the way Derek Carr was playing. But he comes in, actually plays like he gets paid $35 million a year, goes 7 for 9, and then 76 yards passing. So it's a little bit of it makes me feel a little bit better because we're paying him a lot of money to play football as he should. But obviously Derek Carr's past his prime. But a person that I love watching is Spencer Rattler. That first week 1 preseason game,
baby.
He looked electric. He looked like the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. It was so good. I might be overhyping him just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
His aura on the field is unmatched. But he goes in. He only completes 50% of passes, but goes 4-8. And it just didn't look like Spencer Rattler. I mean, it just didn't look like it. And I understand he's rookie. But what I want to happen is not have Spencer Rattler start a game at all. I don't care if Derek Carr has 20 interceptions by the end of the season. I don't want Spencer Rattler to play a game because what happened in college when Spencer Rattler had they put all the eggs in his basket, Spencer Rattler's basket. You know what happened to that basket? All the eggs fell out the bottom. I don't want that happening again. Yeah. I want him to learn from somebody like Derek Carr, who's been in the league 15 years, do a little bit and see what he can learn. So thank you, Jack, for Fuaga. I was a little scared, but Ryan Ramczyk is actually out for the season. He might as well retire. We haven't had him in 3 seasons. It feels like it's a big hole in that offensive line, but he might as well retire. But we have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, which is Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener. Well,
my boy Jake Haener,
another
Senior Bowl alum.
I just don't really care for Jake Haener. I don't think there's anything special to him. I think the only reason he's on the roster is because we foolishly used a fourth round draft pick on him.
He's back in.
He's just and for somebody that doesn't start, he got suspended for 6 games for the PED policy, which I don't understand. Like, why you're going to use PEDs if you're not even going to touch the football field anyways. Like, you can look good at practice.
Use PEDs, at least be good enough to start.
Yeah, at least be good enough to start. But I also saw something that was really interesting, and I wish I had pulled the clip of it, but I keep getting copyrighted, so I just didn't do it. Yes, and that's true. Taysom Hill did play the first quarter. So
Taysom Hill is also listed as a fullback right now.
He looked good. Yeah, he was playing. He was playing fullback, which was interesting.
That's kind of hot.
Fullback, and we were running some fullback dives with Taysom Hill. We were running some fullback dives. It looked pretty nasty, but he is my favorite Mormon. And Joshua Dobbs looked pretty good. Now, he only went 12 for 21. We can talk about that. But on the ground, like against that Saints D line, now I know you can talk about the Saints all you want, but that Saints defense has always been pretty good.
They were top 10 last year. Cooked your all-pro middle linebacker, so I'd hope Josh Dobbs can.
They were good. Yeah, Josh Dobbs looked good, though. I'm not going to say a lot of people are saying that Josh Dobbs maybe should start over Brock Purdy.
No.
I don't think so.
That is laughable. I'll stop him right there.
He doesn't have the passing game that Brock Purdy has. And with that passing game came from With that passing game came from coaches. And one of the coaches who produced Brock Purdy is actually the Saints offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. He was the passing games coordinator for the 49ers, which gives me a little hope on what he might be able to do with Spencer Rattler. Now, he's not going to produce Derek Carr to be anything that Derek Carr is going to be. You're not going to take a 36-year-old and make him the next.
Is he really 36?
He's been in the league 14 years last season. I'm assuming this is his 15th or 16th year. He's got to be somewhere around there. It was just a number I threw out of my head.
Was he with the Raiders that long?
Yeah, he was with the Raiders that long. I think he got drafted in 2013. Oh, he's only 33. 2014, I think, is when he got drafted. I don't know. Yeah, he got drafted in 2014.
He's just
to year 10. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I was like, he's that old?
Maybe I was a little bit calling him
because he did his first contract. He got an extension, and then he went to New Orleans.
Yeah, for 4 years on $150 million. Don't even get me started on that. But I always enjoy watching preseason. I don't want to spend too much long on it because college football is calling my name. I enjoy watching preseason to see what could happen because all teams can find their diamond in the rough. Now, our wide receiver 2-3, Rashid Shaheed, he was an undrafted free agent last year. We wouldn't have found him if he didn't play a couple preseason snaps. You're not going to want to trust somebody who you sign as an undrafted free agent unless they play a couple snaps of football. That's what Rashid Shaheed did. He got on the roster, and that's what makes preseason just a little bit more interesting because you have dudes that people are not looking at that you might say, okay, well, I'm going to take this dude, see what can come out of him, and maybe produce a little bit of yards for me. So, speaking of production, there's somebody that I don't personally know, but MJ might, but I do know by name that could produce really, really good car insurance for you and your family. And his name is Jeff Ratepney.
That's Jeff.
Here's to the grown-ups. Your car is now your office, stage, nursery. Sorry. Erie Insurance offers products that lots of other companies don't. That's a big deal. And it's a good deal, too. And with Erie, you get your own independent agent, not a giant corporate call center or some online robot. You meet with a real person, like this.
Your local Erie agent is Building Block Insurance Group. Get a quote today at 704-464-4544.
Erie Insurance.
And when you call Jeff Ratepney at 704-464-4544, go ahead and ask him if you would make his 53-man roster when it comes to Erie Insurance. And I'm sure you will. Because that's how great Jeff Ratepney takes care of his customers.
Absolutely. Connor, I really hear it coming out of the commercial.
You really hear it coming out the commercial?
I hear the difference in the quality.
Like my microphone? Is that what you're talking
in the mic quality, yeah. coming out of the commercial, it's like, and when you call Jeff Fortepney at 704-464-4544, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna call him.
Let me get some ASMR in here, some breakdown. ASMR.
Whoa! I just can't wait for you to do that with Nate. He gonna freak out.
I'm gonna do it with Coach Bruce's bald self on Thursday.
Just do the entire segment, the entire Davis division. Just whisper sweet nothings the entire time. Just be like, okay, Bruce, so for the Davis division today. And just do that the whole time.
Oh, I will. I will until he just notices. I mean, obviously he's gonna notice something, but I might like put it like on this little drawer that pops out so you can't see it. That's honestly where I should have it right now. And just see, because then I'd be on the top. It wouldn't sound good. It won't sound good. We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
but
we'll get there.
I have something calling my name, and it's not Jeff Fortepney. It's not Coach Bruce. It's a little something called college football. Now, I have perfectly cut off the second segment of this show just so I could yap about college football because I'm getting a little hungry, MJ. So I'm ready to eat a little bit of gravy with C. Davy.
Oh, my goodness, baby.
Oh, my gosh. I'm a little hungry right now. I know you had some chicken and rice or whatever and some mac and cheese, but a little bit of gravy's calling my name, and you can't go wrong with gravy as long as you have Tums to go after it because I swear some of them gravy things be giving me some bad acid reflux, so I got to have me some Tums. Amen. Now, before the college football season starts, my buddy, who's actually over right now, who helped me prepare for this show. So thank you, Noah. He was on the show probably like 3 weeks ago predicting the college football cover athletes from the past 10 years we've been away from it. And he said, look, before you start the college football season, you have to have a college football playoff prediction because now we have 12 teams entering the college football playoff, which is something we've never seen before. So what's interesting is the way everything ranks up, how it ranks up. I'm going to give a little bit of history lesson just to teach people how the way this goes. And so for the college football playoffs, we had 5 conferences called Power 5 conferences. And if you played in those conferences, you were on the upper half of FBS. Now, FBS is a subdivision in football that is the best conference or the best teams the best 134 teams per se. Now you have FCS, which is also Division I, which is like the lower half, kind of the smaller schools, the ones that don't get enough funding. Well, FBS has your Power 5, your Group of 5, and your independents. Now, the Power 5 is the places where you want to go, the money makers, the people that win everything, the people that get a lot of money. You rarely see Group of 5 teams. We saw Cincinnati not too long ago make the college football playoffs, which was unheard of. They were like one of the first teams. And then, of course, we had like historic Boise State teams back in the day. But now it's even more interesting because every year the top 12 teams is 11, could be less, 11 probably Power 5, Power 4 schools because we only have 4 conferences now, power conferences. And then that 12th spot is going to be a lock-in for the best Group of 5 school in the country. So and now
that's guaranteed.
That's guaranteed. Now a Group of 5 team, yes, that Cincy team was loaded. A Group of 5 team always makes the college football playoff at that 12th spot. Because as we saw last year, when the best Group of 5 team went to the New Year's Six Bowl, Oregon beat them 45-6. So they're not going to give too much power to the Group of 5 schools. But now you ask, okay, well, what does the 1 through 4 teams get? Because now we have this precedent set where the best 4 teams were always making the college football playoffs. Ever since the college football playoff existed, it was always the top 4 teams. 1 and 4 played together, and then 2 and 3 played together, and whoever won that was in the national championship. Well, now the 1 through 4 seeds get a bye week, and those 1 through 4 teams are each power conference winners. So whoever wins the SEC, whoever wins the Big 10, whoever wins the Big 12, and whoever wins the ACC. I don't know why I was blanking right there. But what's interesting is that the way the college football playoffs and there's still a selection committee, the way that they will decide is based off conference losses. So if you lose more, even though Missouri, an SEC school, would probably be a lot better than any ACC or Big 12 school that that is next in line than the number 1, they're probably going to get snubbed because they will most definitely have more conference losses going into the college football playoffs.
That's for the 5 through 11.
That's for 5 through 11.
Okay.
Those are your non-lock-in ones. Obviously, 1 through 4 is locked in. 12 is locked in as a group of 5. All your conference winners. And then 5 through 11 is strictly on who has the best conference play in football. Now, I'm going to go through.
Really?
I have graphics. I could yap about this for a long time, but I'm going to try to make it short just so we get our hour talk in. And then maybe I will kind of talk about it on shows to come. But now I have prepared for this. I have graphics. I have tickers. My number 1 team. Well, actually, I'll go through 12. I'll go 12 to 1, and then I will have a graphic to show it so nobody gets confused. Now, 12 is your group of 5 schools. So I was looking at schedules. Obviously, there's precedent here on who played last year. Liberty was 24 ranked going into play in Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. Got absolutely demolished. But when I was looking at schedules, Liberty's cakewalk of a schedule, they're probably going to go undefeated again, even though there's probably better group of 5 schools, just because none of them will go undefeated. Liberty will probably go undefeated with Caden Salter, who is just fantastic. He's a top 10 ranked in college football, the game. And Liberty will be that 12 spot for group of 5. Like I think that someone like Memphis, a team like Memphis, is better than Liberty. But and my buddy and I were talking about this before we started. The only reason Memphis won't make the best group of 5 school is because Memphis specifically schedules Power 4 conference play so that they can kind of show people who they are. But Liberty has a cakewalk of a schedule. They play even worse group of 5 schools and maybe even FCS schools and just cakewalk. So I think they'll be undefeated and go into it.
Makes sense.
So my number 11, going into this, I said I want this team to be number 11. And it's because some people are like, no, there can't be. There's a new regime in Alabama. Alabama gets the 11th spot just barely with 2 losses in the SEC because now we've added Texas and Oklahoma, which makes it a lot harder to go through. Now, I can't remember Alabama's schedule, which I should have all these pulled up, which I will look it up real quick because I want to tell you specifically who I have them losing to. And there's some teams where I have losses that I just feel like they'll lose where they might not lose at all. Well, Alabama plays Georgia. I think that's a loss. And then they play Missouri, they play Tennessee, and they play Tennessee at Rocky Top. And it's difficult because we can go, do we know if Tennessee's going to be good? Because Tennessee's always frauds, to be honest. They never become what they're supposed to be. Yeah, I mean, Joe Milton is playing pretty good in the preseason. So we'll see what he can do. But I felt Alabama was going to lose to Georgia. That was it. I mean, and then I keep looking. They play LSU at Death Valley. And for some reason, that game is – I think Alabama is a better team. Honestly, they have Jalen Milroe. They have a new head coach. But they're bringing a lot of pieces back to a team that they had that went to the Rose Bowl and went into overtime with the national champions from last year. So for me, it was like, okay, they might be at the bottom. They'll get 2 SEC losses, and that'll be Bama. Because I don't feel like a team with 3 losses, unless it comes down to it, will make the college football playoffs. So if we keep going to number 10, I have Oregon going number 10, and they lose to they're now in the Big Ten. So they have to play teams like Ohio State. They have to play teams like Penn State and stuff like that, which I had them losing to Ohio State and Michigan, which I'm going to tell you right now, the national champions from last year do not make the college football playoffs. They don't make it. I have them snubbed. I don't like Michigan this year. Their defense will still be pretty good, but Oregon, for some reason, has never been able to play against a defense that wasn't Pac-12. We've seen it a lot. I mean, even with Marcus Mariota, back in the day when Marcus Mariota won the Heisman, guess what happened? He went to the national championship and lost to Ohio State. So even when Oregon has this top-tier offense, their defense, they just can't play against other competing defenses. So Oregon's going to have 2 losses in the Big Ten for me, and then it gets me to my number 9 pick, which I hate to say it, but Lane Kiffin has been doing good things at Oxford. He's been doing like strange things. He's been bringing people to Oxford that have said that they've never wanted to visit Mississippi in their entire lives. He has the best transfer portal. He's been doing some crazy things. His offseason looks great, and I hate to hype him up, but this is Ole Miss's probably best chance to win the national championship. So Ole Miss goes number 9, 2 SEC losses, like I said. They're going to lose 2. And then I get to number 8, which is a non-conference person. Now, we have 3 independent schools in the country right now. One of them happens to be pretty dang good, and that's Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a pretty cupcake schedule.
Yeah.
Now, they play Florida State, and I have them beating Florida State. Because I think Florida State's – you can't tell me that the team that Florida State has now wasn't the team that played Georgia. Because guess what? Even though you sat all your starters against Georgia, all them guys left. So what
this
you have – this is the team.
Yeah.
Because all them starters sat who were going to leave anyways. And so now you have all the people that were left to just have Georgia's just their wrath of not making the college football playoffs. And then they had the biggest college football playoff deficit ever. So Notre Dame actually they have almost a cupcake schedule. They play Florida State. I have them winning against Florida State, but I have them losing. Now, I have them losing against A&M week 1. A&M's always overhyped, but for some reason that A&M team just seems like they could go in and beat Notre Dame because guess what? Nobody has their wheels rolling. There's no preseason to college football. You raw dog everything week 1. It is purely raw dogged. So whenever you have somebody come in and play an SEC school first game of the season, now Florida State did pretty good against LSU. I will give them that. Florida State did really good against LSU, but more times than none, SEC team comes on top. So I'm giving that a loss, and I think they lose to Louisville at Notre Dame because that's just a team they've always struggled with. They struggled with them last year. They lost to Louisville last year. So I think they lose 2 games, and we keep going backwards to number 7. Now, number 7 gets interesting because now you have people that have gone second place in their conferences, and you look at it and you say, okay, well, if somebody in like the ACC or the Big 12, is that second place person better than somebody that's in the SEC? And the answer may be no. But because we have a win-loss column, that changes everything. Right. Because now you have teams like, for my number 7, Oklahoma State, who's in the Big 12, who goes 11-2 on the season and loses. Much better. It looks a lot better than the SEC school. Well, they lost their conference championship and against a team in the regular season. So now you have people that have 11 wins that might have only lost 1 in the regular season, go to the postseason, the championship, and then lose their conference championship, but still have more wins like Ole Miss and Bama. And on paper, they look better because of that win-loss column. Right. So number 7 is my second place to Big 12 team, Oklahoma State, which actually their schedule looks like a cupcake schedule, but they're not my Big 12 winners. Now, number 6 is my second place for Big 10, Penn State, who they have to play Ohio State. I think they lose Ohio State twice. Losing the regular season, losing the conference championship because you don't have divisions anymore. No. Michigan doesn't make it because Michigan not only has a new head coach, but is still on blast for everything Jim Harbaugh did when he was at Michigan. And the only people that have to feel that punishment is the people that are still left standing at Michigan. Plus, guess what happened? J.J. McCarthy left. Blake Corum left. Your entire offense basically left Michigan. Your number 1 wide receiver left. So unless they can pull something out of their buttholes in this conference realignment and show me something, I have them snubbed. They're not making the college football playoff. Now, right now they're number 9, but that's purely because they won the national championship. But number 5, before I get to my top 4, is SEC runner-up Texas. I think they lose to Georgia in the regular season, and they lose to Georgia in the championship, which is something that Georgia has struggled with. Georgia might have beaten Bama in the regular season, goes on the championship, loses to Bama. Now they're out the playoffs. Happened last year. Right. So it's almost a 1-1 thing. But now Georgia's hungry. They got snubbed last season. Georgia's not going to let anybody stand by Georgia. Because guess what? Guess what Georgia has? Just about every dang person in the city that was on their team last year coming back. So Georgia is hungry. They're ready to eat. So they're going to win the SEC. I think they're an undefeated team. But number 4 brings me to my Big 12 winner, Arizona. Arizona showed me something that I can't forget last year. They took Mississippi State to overtime with Noah Fafita as a true freshman. Noah Fafita looks great. I was looking at some of Noah Fafita's numbers. He single-handedly did a lot of things for Arizona. They were 16th ranked, won their bowl game last season, 16th ranked in the country. Arizona's looking good. And their big opponents is Kansas State and Oklahoma State. And I think they beat Oklahoma State in the championship. I think they might lose to them in the regular season. So I have Arizona, number 4. My third place pick is ACC. My ACC winner is Clemson. I'm picking Clemson. My mom's from Clemson. It is a little biased, but I have them losing one game.
Okay.
And it's not the Florida State. I think they beat Florida State. And I think they beat Florida State in the championship if it goes down to it, which makes me believe that Florida State will have 3 losses, which is why I don't have Florida State in the top 10. But no, they don't lose to SMU.
Dang it.
Thing is, Clemson has had a history and a tradition now where they play somebody week 1 every year. And that somebody just so happens to be the hungriest team in the country, Georgia. So they lose to Georgia week 1. But they pick it back up. They beat everybody. Like, they play NC State, which scares me. But they really don't play anybody but Florida State all year. And they beat Florida State to me because Florida State are frauds. Listen to me, Florida State fans, you are frauds. You're going to sit here and tell me that the people you have starting now were not the people you had play against Georgia and lost 65-3. Okay? That's what's going to happen. You're going to have people that are going to have they're going to be exposed. And we're going to see Florida State might drop out of the top 25. They're getting snubbed again. They're getting snubbed again. And Florida State fans, you can cry all you want. Recruit better. You let DJ, you brought DJ in, which I applaud it. But guess where DJ came from? Clemson University. So you're just taking Clemson scraps, bringing them to your own team, calling them a starter in hopes that you can repair something you lost last year from being snubbed and losing 65-3 to the hungriest team in the country.
They lost 65-3.
Yes, the biggest and I'm almost certain it was 65-3. I can look it up real quick.
Was that to Georgia?
That was to Georgia because they were like, "Oh, why did we miss the playoffs?" Yeah, they got mad because they missed the playoffs. They are the only team in history to be a part of a power conference and not make the playoffs undefeated. And they go in and play Georgia. Oh, well, all the starters sit out, lose 63-3 against Georgia
in the bowl game.
In the bowl game. It was in the Orange Bowl. And you're going to tell me that the people, you still got layers to a cake. College football roster is a layered cake.
It's deep.
When that top layer's eaten off and you got those people right now that are playing in that bowl game against Georgia, this layer ends up being the top layer again. And right now, Florida State, that's your starters now. And when they go in and play somebody like Georgia again, guess what's going to happen? They're going to lose 63-3, and then what's going to happen, Florida State fans? You're going to be upset crying. You're going to be crying again just like you were last year. So get that coin out of my face. I don't want to hear it. Florida State's getting snubbed. Number 2, undefeated. I hate to say it, Kenny, if you're watching, Ohio State goes number 2, undefeated. They beat Penn State 2 times to become undefeated and 13-0 season. And then Georgia's your number 1 team in the country. They become 13-0. And if Georgia wins it all, we might possibly see the greatest college football season ever because Georgia had to beat Texas twice. They had to beat Alabama. They had to beat all these teams to get to where they are just to be ranked number 1. If they win the whole thing, that might be the greatest season we've ever seen. Right now, it is the greatest season we've ever seen, becoming undefeated. But if you missed it, all I've said was yapping. There it is right there. All the rankings and the records. It's all right there. Everything's you want to ask it, it's right there. But let's get into a graphic I had that Noah made if he's still watching. Graphic for the college football playoffs right here. It shows you everything. Let me take this banner off.
Yeah.
And right now we have everything set up the way it's supposed to be. Your 1 through 4 seeds get a bye. And then your 12th seed plays 5, 9 plays 8, 11 plays 6. You know, it's like a regular thing. But the thing that's to point out is that 5 and 12 school, that 5 and 12 thing, plays that number 4 team next.
It doesn't get reseeded.
It doesn't get reseeded because even though the 12th seed might win, that number 5 school or that number 12 school to go against that number 4 seeded Arizona, they might either have the hardest game of the season or the easiest game of the season, depending on how that game goes out.
Yeah.
So this is exactly how it's supposed to look. Your number 1 seed plays the winner of your 8 and 9, which is interesting because now you kind of have harder games because it doesn't get reseeded. If Liberty were to beat Texas, Georgia doesn't automatically play Liberty, even though they're the number 1 seed. They play whoever wins that 8 and 9 seeded team, which I kind of like a little bit better because you won't have frauds going to the national championship. These are people that have been in the trenches who have not only went through World War I and World War II, but they went through World War III to get to the college football national championship. And we're going to see it in just a second. So I have completely compiled scores of who I think are going to win in these rounds. And I'm going to share them with you, see what you think, and we will go from there. Let me take a sip of water because I'm yapping a bunch.
I do agree, though, Connor, that I like that it adds a little layer of difficulty that you don't want Georgia to cakewalk. Like that's what's been great about the conference championships is it's that last little test before the playoffs, and I think this does give you an extra test because hypothetically Georgia could have to play Ole Miss and Texas a third time before they get to the national championship.
Exactly. And it's interesting because you're not going to have frauds in the national championship. These are guys, like I said, that have been in the trenches. They're going to win multiple top games to get to where they are going to be. I mean, before we had people like TCU making the national championship. And guess what happened when TCU played Georgia? They lost like 60-3.
They got cakewalked.
That was the original word. It's the worst deficit in national championship history, but it was the worst deficit in postseason history until Georgia came and played Florida State. Now, I have scores that I mean, you can tell me what you think about them. If you disagree with them, that's fine. You cut me off. You tell me what you think. If you agree with them, you can nod your head, say, Connor, I agree. Or just do whatever you want, MJ. But this first game is number 12 seed Liberty, number 5 seed Texas. I have Texas beating them 49-10. In this game. It's going to be a blowout just like we saw Oregon and Liberty. The only reason I have Liberty having more points on the board than they did against Oregon is because there's a little bit more to lose here. You lose, you're out of contention in the national championship. You lost a New Year's Six Bowl last year. You just lost your bowl game. There wasn't anything after it. So that I have them losing 49-10. What do you think about it? You okay with it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no way on this God-given earth that Liberty beats Texas.
Yeah.
I don't even think they challenge.
In this next game is interesting. I hate giving Ole Miss props, but Ole Miss plays Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's still a little fraudulent. So I have Ole Miss beating Notre Dame 30-17. And I think they're fraudulent.
I tend to agree. I mean, being in Chicago, and that was all we're allowed to watch on TV on Saturdays. I've watched plenty of Notre Dame football, and it never impressed me. They've never had a good quarterback. They can't keep up. That's where I will agree that SEC teams are better, just inherently. Like I think the majority of SEC teams are just inherently better than Notre Dame.
So Kenny gets his little Outback Bowl again against Alabama and Penn State. And the last time these two teams met, I don't know what the score was. I'm not even going to do that because I don't even remember what the score was because I don't want to say something wrong. But Bama and Penn State play each other, and I'm inclined to believe that this will be a blowout. But because of my own emotions and say that it's SEC versus Big Ten, I actually have this being a close game because guess what's on the table if Penn State wins 2 games? They get to go in and try to beat Ohio State and not get swept 3 times. So there's a lot to win in this game for Penn State because they can go and beat Ohio State and go to the national championship.
Is that a host game for Penn State?
No, these are New Year's, like these are bowl games like we saw, like New Year's Six bowls. Okay. But they're technically hosted. I mean, it says it's technically hosted, but it's still going to be in that neutral site, like the Sugar Bowls in New Orleans or the Rose Bowls in California.
Are any of these at location or are they all neutral site?
I'm almost certain that all of them are new. I don't know the quarterfinals for sure is neutral. The first round is actually interesting because
I think it's saying because there's the four, or is it six?
there's 6 New Year's Six
Six,
game,
but
but
it's
there's going to be
still
8 games in total. So I think they're bringing in like okay, yeah, okay. So that is the first round's hosted by the higher seed, and then
okay.
it goes
So
to
in
like
that
the New Year's.
case,
It's right. Because look, you have 4 of the New Year's Six bowls in the quarterfinals and 2
yeah.
of the rest of them in the semifinals. So it makes sense. Okay, because it equals out
Okay.
16. So we got that.
So I'm not gonna lie. I think it does get a lot closer with Penn State being at home because that's gonna be a cold game.
So I have it close, but I have Bama barely inching, and they win 23-20.
I mean,
Barely
if I
inching.
had to put money on it again, like way far in advance, I would probably put my money on Bama. But again, I think that home field advantage really does, out of any of the teams on this list, I think Bama or Penn State in the first round has probably the best home field advantage.
And that may be true, but what I've seen from Bama now, obviously,
That's old Bama.
They didn't
That's
lose a
old
lot.
Bama.
They lost their head coach, which is a big hit. But they really didn't lose that much. They still have their starting quarterback, Jalen Milroe, and the things I've seen from him are abnormal. They're
He's a
just
stud. He's a stud.
they are like not human.
He's
So
disgusting in college football, by the way.
yeah, he is, and I want to say he wins a playoff game because he's going to be hungry too. Think about it. You lost in overtime to the last year's national champions. Obviously, people are going to say, "Look, that should have been your national championship." If I'm being honest, because you have people saying, "Look, they competed with Michigan, the person that just went out and won everything. That we're hungry, and took them to overtime to a team that was kind of put together with jigsaw pieces laying around to try to make a puzzle."
Yeah.
Now, Nick Saban, we knew it was his last year. He really didn't try. He just really didn't try. He just tried to put together what he already had and see if something stuck. And it did. He went to overtime with Michigan, ended up picking a horrible – that's why I think that play was picked, because Nick Saban was just done. He picked on 4th and goal against a top Michigan defense. He picked a QB sneak or QB draw with Jalen Milroe on a 4th and goal on like the 6-yard line or the 2. It was like so comparable to that.
Really?
And it just ruined their season. And so I think Nick Saban was done. But you got almost the market's best head coach who's already been to a national championship last year. Washington's head coach, Kellen DeBoer. He's been to a national championship. So, look. And Jack thinks his OC was Notre Dame guy. And that could be it too. But they have a lot. They're hungry. So the hungrier team's going to go out. And I know Penn State's hungry too. But Alabama has a lot to prove with Nick Saban gone. Penn State has lost to Ohio State twice. So for them to lose against Bama is just like, okay, well, Penn State just can't compete at a top level. We're going to say that. But for Bama to lose against Penn State would be, okay, well, without Nick Saban, Bama can't do anything. So these people have to set their own mark now because they have proof as each of their teams. So we go to Oregon and Oklahoma State. I don't want to spend too much time on just the first round.
Yeah.
And I have Oregon beating them 38-21 because Oklahoma State just has a run game. That's all they have. I don't see them having much of passing game. I don't see their defense being stellar against Oregon. I just have Oregon putting up Pac-12 numbers against them and 38 points. So here's my first round scores. It's on the ticker at the bottom. If you missed it, I'm going to go to slide 2 to update you. And then we have kind of the next games. And so we said before that 5th ranked Texas team will play that 4 seed Arizona team. And so how will that game pan out? I've seen stuff from Noah Fafita, but he just isn't like a super stellar postseason quarterback. He won't be. He's still young. He still has a lot to learn. I think Texas cakewalks Arizona 42-27. I have him winning 42-27. So,
yeah, I agree. I don't think it's close.
Now, this is what's interesting because Ole Miss comes in, plays against Georgia. Ole Miss lost to Georgia in the regular season. Can Georgia go ahead and beat another team twice? Can they do it again? And I think the answer is yes. But I think it's a close. I think it's not too close, but it's a closer game than we think. I think Georgia in the half, the half is super comparable because Ole Miss and Georgia will probably be like 24-21 or something. They'll be really close. Then once half happens, Georgia just eats. Georgia wins this game 38-24. That's it. They beat Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's time, his window would have won a national championship is over. In my opinion, this is the best year they got. And Georgia just keeps eating. They keep eating. Alabama and Clemson play. When's the last time you've heard Alabama play Clemson, MJ?
Wasn't that the national championship?
2 times, 3 times maybe in the national championship. Nah, twice. They lost one. And they won one against Bama. So we've seen this before. They are 1-1 against each other in the national championship in recent years. But we have an 11th seed Alabama taking on a 3 seed Clemson. This game's close, MJ. There's a lot of fire here. This is the rock paper scissors last round. This is me and you playing rock paper scissors. We both won one. I beat your. Yep. I had scissors. I beat your paper. I had scissors again. You beat it with rock. This is it, MJ. We got the last round of rock paper scissors. I got Clemson getting on top of Bama here, 35-31, because I feel like Clemson is also hungry. They just keep, like Michelle says, it's not that close. It's not that close. She's gonna be a good sport about it. She's gonna say good luck to Bama. But Clemson comes on top. They have kind of a more seasoned quarterback, although I don't think he's better than Jalen Milroe. He's a little bit more seasoned than Jalen Milroe. He's had some tough games too in his career and was able to get on top. They beat Notre Dame last year. Like, I think Clemson gets on top, barely beats Bama 35-31.
I will have to disagree. That's fine. Because weren't you the one talking about how Clemson's schedule after week 1 is really easy?
Not necessarily. They have to play a 10th ranked Florida State. Like, they have to play a 24th ranked NC State. Like, they have to play people, but it's not as hard of a schedule as Alabama or something. You know?
Yeah, I just think that Alabama's going to have already played way more hard games. And this will be the hardest game Clemson has played yet. So if Alabama really does make it to this spot, they've played Georgia. Like, they've played all these teams. I don't think
they're
Clemson spares them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if they really are all that with Milroe and, a hotshot head coach, it's one of those things where I understand it's a different program now, but I still got to go with Bama until I see otherwise.
You know what I think, though? I think what's going to happen is Alabama is going to be looking at who they're going to play next year in this game, which could possibly be Ohio State. And they're going to go, okay, we're going to play Ohio State if we win this game. But they're not going to go into the correct steps to – it happens a lot of the time. It happened when Michigan played TCU and got beat.
Yeah.
It happens where you look past this team you're playing and you're saying, okay, well, we want to beat Ohio State in the national championship again because the last time they did it, it was 52-24. It looked ugly. So they want to do it again. They just want to they want to go against Ohio State real quick. I think they lose to Clemson, miss the opportunity, and just try to say good luck next year. And Michelle agrees with me. I'm glad she does.
Of course she does.
But we go to the Oregon-Ohio State. And this is a chance for Ohio State to beat Oregon another time because they play in the regular season, and I think they beat Oregon 41-21. I think it is. It's not a close game here. Kenny is the epitome of Ohio State's football team, and he is so down about not being in the college football playoff conversation in the most recent years that he is just ready to be there. They are hungry. They aren't hungry. They're starving, MJ. They are freaking starving like hyenas out in the desert that haven't found anything but sand. They're starving. They've been walking for 40 days and 40 nights, and all they've had in front of them is sand. And once they get to that perfect palm tree and water, they're going to have to keep marching. And to get there, they got to march through more sand, which is your Oregon Ducks, and they beat Oregon 41-21.
I like it.
So these are my scores for the quarterfinals.
Okay.
So let me update you, MJ.
Yep.
I came prepared, so let me update you.
5-1.
Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Texas, Georgia for the third time.
Texas, Georgia for the third time.
That's
And you're
wild.
sitting here.
Has that ever happened before?
It hasn't happened in college football, but it's happened in the NFL. Where a team has played each other three times.
But it hasn't happened in college football.
No.
That's crazy.
This is the first time a team has ever played somebody three times in a season. And you're like, okay, well, Georgia's undefeated.
You have Georgia winning the first two?
Georgia wins the first two, which is uncharacteristic of them because, as I said, they've lost to Alabama last year after beating them in the regular season.
Right.
You're like, okay, there's a lot riding on this game. Georgia could be the first team in history to beat a team three times in a year. But Texas could be, finally, in the national championship again. In 20 years, they could do it with Quinn Ewers driving the helm. But the dilemma here is Georgia, we've seen them in the past 3 years have two record-breaking historic games. They're not scared to break history. They're not scared to set records because what's going to happen? Georgia's going to run through Texas. It's going to be a close game, 30-27. Georgia's going to win and be the first team to beat a team three times in a season of college football because they're not scared to break records and put their names in the history books.
I mean, I like it, but I also would not be surprised if Texas wins.
No, I wouldn't be surprised
to beat a team three times in one season. That's really hard.
It is.
That's really hard. And I wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if Georgia lost the conference championship game, wasn't the 1 seed, and then won the national championship.
I wouldn't be surprised. That is perfectly fine because guess what? They have to play worse ranked teams if that's the case.
Yeah.
If that's the scenario, they have to play worse.
They could still basically cakewalk to the same game.
And they could. They very well could.
They'd be 5 instead of 1, and they would beat Liberty, beat Arizona, and then end up in the same game. So they if this is true, really what matters is Texas and Georgia being in the conference championship, and then whoever wins gets 1, and whoever loses probably still gets 5. They might play each other 3 times no matter what.
It could happen no matter what. It very well could happen. It could be for the national championship. There is a scenario where they could play each other in the national championship, which is a testament to how dang good the SEC is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But even then, for those two teams to get there, do you understand the amount of competition they would have to play? They wouldn't have to just play almost the entire SEC. They have to go through and also play teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the country to get to the national 3 times if they're not the 1 through 4 seed, because only one of them is going to get the bye. But we go to Clemson, Ohio State. What's interesting, these teams have played each other 4 times ever. And the last time, Ohio State has only beat Clemson once ever in program history. And it was when Justin Fields was on Ohio State. And they took Clemson out the playoffs to go and lose to Alabama 52-24. So Ohio State has the edge on Clemson. And they set a precedent, a really recent precedent. I think the precedent's going to stay, but it's a close game. Clemson wants to beat Ohio State to get them back from last time, but Ohio State wants to go to the dang national championship because it's a freaking 10-year drought. They beat Clemson 24-21. And in your national championship is Georgia and Ohio State.
Oh,
those are your scores for your semifinals. So this is the two best teams in the country, the 2 undefeated teams in the country. And Kenny, this will finally shut Kenny up when these two teams play, because you know what's going to happen? You know what happened last year when Georgia played a non-conference team in the playoff?
Georgia's going to cakewalk them.
Do you know what happened when Georgia played a non-conference team in the playoff the year before that?
Talk to him, Connor.
Georgia set 2, not one. They set a record one season and then set a harder. They beat the same record that is so difficult to beat the year after. They beat people by 60-plus points 2 years in a row in the postseason. Do you think Georgia is going to let somebody beat them after having that? These guys are hungry. They just got snubbed from the playoffs to potentially go in, and maybe they could have beat Michigan. Maybe, but we will never know. But guess what? We don't have to know, because they're going to beat the team that beat Michigan this year. They're going to go in and beat Ohio State 31-20. They're going to go in and not even give Ohio State a chance. It's not going to be close. Georgia's going to let them think they're going to be on top. Georgia's going to let them just play with them a little bit. Kirby smart. And he knows that if Ryan Day loses this game, it might be over for Ryan Day at Ohio State. So Georgia's going to win, and Georgia becomes your national champions for the third time in 4 years. Look at that graphic. Just take that graphic in.
I like it. I like it a lot. I like your analysis. I like the new playoff. I think this is what will finally get some more fans into college football. I think the problem was for so long, some of these bowl games didn't count for anything. And you're seeing postseason play that doesn't count for anything. Let's put some meaning behind it. These are basically professional programs now, with all of the money flowing in, with the way they train, with the way they prepare. These are professional programs. It may not be the NFL, but these are professional programs. And there needs to be that level of attention and that level of respect for their playoffs. So I love it.
Oh, it makes college football that much more exciting because even though NIL and transfer portal did kind of ruin the integrity of the sport, we just had something that almost brought it back to its original form, and that's this 12-team college. Because now, like I said already, it could be any. We could see a group of 5. Now, the chances of a group of 5 team beating Georgia, I don't see it happening. But some people are like that. They like to risk it. Some guys that are on riding the group of 5 train, not me. I don't think that you're in the group of 5 for a reason, pal. If you're good enough to be in a power conference, you'd be in a power conference. Like, it's not that difficult.
But on any given Saturday,
yep.
I mean, it's possible. And like, you see it in college basketball. Obviously, it's a different sport, but like, these teams go on runs during March Madness. And I think that's what it's been, is nobody's ever been given the opportunity to go on that run. And so the first time that a 12 seed beats the 5, we're going to be like, ah! And the first time that a 12 seed wins 2 games in a row, it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know when, but it's going to happen.
But you know who that 12 seed is, though? A group of 5 school.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's going to be like a Cinderella story every time.
But at some point, it's going to happen.
I agree. I 100%
And that's
agree.
when you're going to hear Texas fans in here like, oh, my goodness, why are we doing this stupid playoff, blah, blah, blah. Brother, you wouldn't even been in the other one because you're number 5. You suck.
And Texas, I think they're frauds, too. That's why they hadn't made one in 20 years. You got the most money out of just about any school ever, and you still use it to wipe your butt instead of putting it into your football program.
It's just crazy to me that, like, Alabama recruits better in Texas than Texas does.
Exactly. Like, people – and it was a Nick Saban thing. Now it probably won't be as prominent, but it's interesting. It makes the game – there's so many variables in the game, and I like numbers, and especially I like letters with those numbers. And math, algebra was my thing, and I love it because now we have not only A as a variable, B as a variable, and C as a variable. We have the entire alphabet's worth of letters inside of a math equation.
We got S too.
Oh, we do. And some of these teams do.
Yep.
But MJ, you know what's going to happen.
Yes.
We got to turn it on.
Turn it on, girl.
The channel. Because as we start the week on the high note,
yes,
we have to end the week on the high note as well. So Nate's not here, but one thing that we made very certain is that regardless of either of us being here, we're still going to have new week, new chapter.
Yes. Talk to me, Connor.
And so I don't really do preparation for this segment. I kind of just let it flow how it's supposed to flow. I kind of think of something and then kind of have a scripture to back it up. But I did a little bit something different this time because now I have snipped a piece of the gospel for today. Now I'm a little Catholic boy, and we have a gospel reading every day. Yep. It is a part of, we have different readings, but the gospel is like the one that you almost want to pay attention to because it's about Jesus. You know, right. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that's Jesus, man. That's the story of Jesus's big events in his life.
My guy.
And you read that and you really get something like, we're told to live like Jesus. We're told to love like Jesus. And we can't really do that if we don't know how Jesus lived or he loved.
Right.
So reading the gospel is a good testament to it. So I have picked a snippet of it. It is actually Matthew chapter 19, 23 and 26. I just want to pull up this scripture first before I read the gospel. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich person to enter the kingdom of God. Now, I point that out because when I read it to you, I want it to stand out to you and give you a little history lesson on what it's supposed to mean. Now, I went to a Catholic school my whole life, so I got a lot of talking to, but the person I really got the most kind of influence from was my Southern Baptist grandfather, rest his soul. I would sit down and talk to him for ages, and it would be really informative because he knew his stuff. He read his stuff. And it's like, you're going to talk to him, you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit there and listen to him and then not have anything to go tell your mama what you learned when you went back home.
Right.
So I want to point that out, and I'm going to put it as a ticker right here. It's the verse of the week, 23 to 26. I'm going to read it just real quick. And Jesus said to his disciples, "Amen, I say to you, it will be hard for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. But again, I say to you, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and said, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus looked at them and said, "For men this is impossible, but for God all things are possible." So when we look at the eye of a needle, and it's a testament to how much kind of the interpretation of the Bible has evolved, right? Because obviously when we think of needle nowadays, it is this little sewing tool. But that's not actually what they were talking about back then. Because back then, a needle, what they referred to a needle, now you had a lot of gates and walls back then to kind of block off countries. You had a lot of kind of invasions and stuff. And to prevent that, a lot of them had walls. Well, there was a little door on the side of the wall called the needle. And for a camel, it's very difficult for a big desert horse to go through a door that is made for a human being.
Right.
So when they say that, it's like, okay, well, how can a camel go through something that is not made for a camel?
Can't.
And it's interesting because he tells us, how can you do something as a person, as somebody that I have created, that you were not made to do? That would be impossible. But if you had me, just believed in me, it would be 100% possible.
Yes, sir.
Because although you weren't made to do it, although it wasn't designed for you to go through it, if you listen to me and you follow what I'm telling you, you can do it.
Yeah.
But the rich person analogy is somebody that is so enveloped in money that they just don't listen to the teachings of Jesus. That's kind of what it was going for. But honestly, I look at that, and a lot of times we're told, like, hey, maybe we don't need to have all this money, whatever. I'm not looking to be rich. That's not my goal in life. My goal is not to be wealthy. My goal in life is purely to be successful. And for success, it's a relative term. How do you determine success as a person? Is it you want to have 4 cars in a garage? You want to have a mansion out in Cali? Do you want to have this? Do you want to have that? For me, it's not a material thing. Success is not material to me. Although I could have these things to make me happier, for success for me is to be the best I can spiritually, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And to provide one day for a family. That is what I want to do. But all my LYs, I told my buddy the other day, look, I know you're trying to get this girl. I know you're talking to this girl. But look, if all your LYs are in order, the mindset this girl should have is she's going to reject me. No, your mindset should be she has, and I use this term loosely, the privilege to talk to me, because I not have only perfectly set myself mentally, emotionally, and physically, my spirituality is at the peak of what it's going to be, because what I thought was impossible, what I thought getting my spirituality here was impossible, was actually very possible, because with God, we can do things that we are not made to do. Just like a camel's not made to go through that door, they can do it. You know, it's possible. But I don't want to talk all day. We've gone a lot. I just wanted to kind of give a history lesson, kind of bring it in together, see what you thought. I know you like to kind of listen to the spiritual talks, and I appreciate it. I mean, appreciate people wanting to listen to me because that might be a calling. I mean, witnessing sounds pretty awesome. But
let me say, you know how to talk. So if you ended up being a pastor one day, I would not be surprised.
And there's a dilemma there because a lot of people that are Catholic, is like a priest thing. But I'm going to be honest, I really like women. And I know we're in a new week, new chapter segment, and I'm not trying to be like gross or anything, but like, and it might be a problem for me. I might sometimes like women more than I like Jesus. And I work on that. I have my faults, but if that was my calling and I had Jesus up top, I would have to accept it with all my heart, mind, soul, body. I would have to accept it, and I would. Right. But as we end the New Week, New Chapter segment, I want to end it off with the prayer like always. Yes, so if you're ready for it, I'm ready to go. Nate always asks me if I'm ready, so
I'm ready.
I got to ask. Okay, so
I'm ready.
Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, I thank you for letting us come today just to talk a little bit about football, but to most importantly talk about you, Lord. I want to thank you for letting me fill in Nate's shoes with somebody that just might be a little bit better for today. Maybe so, but thank you for not having me struggle in terms of finding a replacement. Thank you for letting everything fall in place how it's supposed to be. I pray that you continue to help us find our paths in life, Lord, that we will find the light of the tunnel if we're in a dark space right now, that with you, all things are possible, but without you, there's nothing we can do, because something that we weren't made to do can be perfectly possible if we just follow you, Lord. Lord, I want you to teach us to live like Jesus, to love like Jesus, that whenever we get to those times in life where we're just a little bit down and we just don't know what to do, we have one word to look at, and that's to look at the teachings and the living of your Son. And with your Son comes his holy and precious name. And with that, I say, amen.
Amen.
MJ, I hope you enjoyed this show. We went a little bit off time. But okay. I really did. And I did enjoy it. I don't try to take that last segment from Nate, but sometimes I really do enjoy taking it because it gets something off my chest that although I can yap about football, if I had to yap about God for the rest of my life, I'd be okay with that. Because again, I'm yapping and I enjoy to yap a little bit. So MJ, is there anything you'd like to say before we end off this show?
No, I'm good. As always, thank you so much for having me. I know we did one of these when we were in Mobile.
And it was fantastic.
It's always more fun when we're together. I wish I could, dap you up, give you a great big hug right now. But no, I'm very impressed both with your sports knowledge and, with your biblical knowledge, and you're mature for your age.
Thank you.
So don't let that go. Proud of you.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And I used to call MJ Dad back when we worked at Chick-fil-A. And he is somebody that I do really look up to in terms of his success. He is now he's a top dog here, but he's a GM at Chick-fil-A now?
Assistant GM will be a GM at some point. $10 million store. Yeah.
I mean, MJ, he might look like my dad, but he really isn't that much older than me.
No, I'm really not. I shaved because I got everybody. They were starting to say 4 was the first number in my age, and I got a little scared, so I shaved to try to take that back down to a 3. So hopefully, I may look old enough to be Connor's dad, but we're actually much closer to each other's age than you may think.
And the amount of, and I want to give MJ grace for this, the amount of stuff he's been able to accomplish at Chick-fil-A in the short amount of time he's been on this earth is a testament to how truly good of a worker and somebody that you can, like a role model, you can look up to. So I appreciate you, MJ, for being in my life these last couple of years. And I've really been able to grow in not only like a communication sense, but in a little bit of a working sense since you were my manager back at Chick-fil-A. So everyone, Nate's going to be back hopefully next week. Like I said before, he was reffing. He's getting his freaking NFL resume going so he can be a ref and a line judge at NFL. Just be looking at people. So when he gets there, will be there. We're going to freaking do a
Oh, yeah.
TDT episode on it. I know it. When it comes, it's going to happen. So
excited.
he'll be here next week, hopefully. But if you're going to be here, please don't leave us because we won't leave you. The breakdown is going to be here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central Time. We're staying, so don't leave us, please. I'm your co-host, Connor Davis, the most electrifying man on your TV screen, as I like to say. To my right is not the man, the myth, the legend, the 5-year NFL vet, Nate Nessie, but it is MJ Hurley, the man that is in charge of this and makes this place possible. So if you enjoy what you see, go ahead and give MJ a little bit of follow at MJ Hurley TDT. He does updates and stuff. And we will see you next week on the breakdown, X's and O's, with hopefully NFL veteran Nate Nessie. Goodbye.